What are some of the difficulties about finding things in common between different peoples?
Yeah, well, some people are more alike than others. For instance, Dutch people and Belgian people are rather similar, but Italians and Japanese are very different. And the more you have in common with someone, the better you get on with them, and the better you can do business with them, for instance. So, for instance, I think a Swedish company came to me once with a request that they needed to sell more cars, but to Saudi Arabia, and they were Swedes. Of course, it was Volvo. And I said, how many cars do you sell? Then they said 5,000. I said, well, that's very good. And they said, no, it's not very good. You know, Saudi Arabia buys 25,000 cars a year, and they only buy 5,000 from us. How do we increase the sales? And I said, well, you have to get on well with them and be friendly with them, and then they'll buy more. And they said, well, how do we get friendly with them? And I said, you have to talk about things that you have in common. So go away and come back in 2 hours' time and tell me what you have in common with Saudi Arabians, what Swedes have in common with Saudi Arabia. So they went out of the room for 2 hours and came back, and I said, well, what did you find in common? And they said, nothing. And they said, we can't talk about anything with them. I said, well, why not? They said, well, you can't talk about women. I said, no, you can't talk about women. They said, you can't talk about drinking. I said, no, you can't talk about drinking. They said, you can't talk about religion. I said, no, you can't talk about religion. They said, there's nothing to talk about. Well, later years, of course, they found one thing that they could talk about, and that was football. And in that respect, they were able to make progress and sell more cars.
So, as you approach your birthday, what are you most proud of? When you look back on your life, what are the proudest moments?
Well, one of the things I am proud of, although I have a very humble beginning, I was a miner's grandson, and I'm able to conduct myself, I consider, satisfactorily, competently, with people like the Emperor of Japan and the Chancellor of Germany. I think one can be proud of these things as one has had to learn them during life, and I get on very well with these people.
And what's the secret to getting on with people?
Well, to understand, really, that at the bottom of them, they're probably very similar to yourselves, and that they have the same problems that you have. For instance, when they sneeze or hiccup, you know, it makes you feel closer to them in a sense, that they're human like you are, even though they're, well, emperor of this or that. It certainly applied to the emperors of Japan and other politicians, which French and Italian that I taught.
And personally, what are you proudest of?
Well, I think that remaining myself and remaining humble, but mixing with people who are extremely intelligent or competent and holding my own with them.
Brilliant. And you've created a beautiful place here that people love to call home and return to and feel part of your family, and that's really special for them.
Well, I've created it, and I created the atmosphere that there is here, but I certainly didn't create the house, which is 700 years old. It's a beautiful house. It's not too far from London. It's extremely suitable place for the type of venture I had in mind.